I am turning into a news channel. Wow, exciting. To put simply, it's been a very interesting week for manga. Twitter has kind of imploded in on itself because of one very specific individual known as Togashi, the author of Hunter x Hunter. It's been quite some time since we last seen Hunter x Hunter, I believe 2, going on almost 3 years now. A lot of massive breaks for Hunter x Hunter and Togashi himself, as he is someone that has suffered with severe chronic back pain for a very long time now. If you've ever had back pain, you know how excruciatingly bad it can be. So it's always exciting when something Togashi related, something Hunter x Hunter related starts to drip feed onto our timeline. And the way his return was revealed to the world was rather funny. So if I recall correctly, it was another day on Twitter and a random account appeared with a bunch of letters, a bunch of numbers. Very incoherent, right? But this profile was directly built around Togashi's identity, using his little dog image that he loves to use, as well as dropping a picture of some production stuff for new chapters. Now this gained quite a bit of traction very quickly, but a lot of people thought it was a hoax, a prank, something fake. There was no way to confirm it. But the artist of One Punch Man would actually retweet and comment on this post. Gained a little bit more traction, a little bit more popularity behind it. It still wasn't confirmed, but this was our only source of semi-confirmation. Of course, at this point, everyone's super excited. Everyone's talking about Hunter x Hunter's return, but the one thing that really kind of trickled it over is that this account was starting to be followed by very massive people within the industry. To us as fans, this was the biggest tell sign that this was Togashi. Of course, shortly after that, a Jump representative came out and said that yes, this is Togashi, and that he'll probably be coming back soon. So Hunter x Hunter is returning. We don't necessarily know when, but we do have some sort of loose indication on how many chapters it's going to be. Thanks to the images that Togashi has been posting, it's currently looking like it's going to be around 10, which would definitely fall in line with his previous years, but you never know. It could be less, it could be more, he could be feeling a lot better. It's hard to tell with Togashi and how severe back pain can truly be. So this is great news. This blew up Twitter, this blew up everywhere really. Obviously a lot of us are very excited, and it's great to see Togashi coming back once again. I think that's the best way to put it, to be honest. Do you remember Ayashimon by Yuji Kaku, the person that wrote Hell's Paradise, which is also getting an anime supposedly this year, maybe even next year? Unfortunately, this series has come to an end, has around about 25 odd chapters, and I assume it just wasn't really gaining any traction. So Ayashimon is done, it's finished, Yuji Kaku is gone. This is a little bit disappointing. Personally, I really enjoyed Hell's Paradise and I was interested into the idea that it was Ayashimon, but unfortunately I just couldn't stick with it. Conflict of time, a conflict of interest, but I couldn't find myself getting all too much enjoyment of it. It wasn't necessarily bad or horribly kind of thought out, but I think a lot of that uniqueness that Kaku has, a lot of that brutality, the dark lore and mythology and everything that he likes to weave in that has this very unique appeal or aesthetic to it, just wasn't clicking with Ayashimon. And I don't know if that's Kaku's choice themselves or a product of Weekly Shonen Jump's formula and adhering to what they want to try and push forward. I had a feeling that the style of story that Ayashimon was going for would be buried by a lot of other things, because it seemed like it was trying to take a lot of the popular elements from series, weaving it within its own narrative, which in some cases does work, but in Ayashimon's case, it didn't really hold up. It's reached its conclusion. 'Tis unfortunate, but on the bright side, I would love to see Kaku return to Jump Plus and to really spread their wings, to go back to that dark lore and brutality that was super efficient in Hell's Paradise, that was super stylistic, and cultivate it even further. They could definitely find a lot of success in their next series if timed extremely well, but I wish all the best for them. Now, I have never read this series. I don't think I'm probably going to read it. It's not necessarily up my alley, but me and Roboko, I have seen so many people talk about this story in the worst way possible, hating it, despising it, saying how is it not cancelled or how has it not been axed, etc, etc. I don't know how bad it is or if it even is bad. All I know and have personally seen that it loves to take a lot of inspiration from other stories rather directly and use it as its comedic purpose, its gag fuel, if you will. Again, personally, not my cup of tea, but this is getting an anime. Now, a lot of people were in uproar about this because this one series has outlived a lot of others that people really loved. At the end of the day, we don't know the specifics of what a story has to adhere to in terms of response or reception or fans, popularity, etc. It most likely differs for every single story and what that story is trying to tell. For the fans of me and Roboko, I'm more than happy for you. You're finally getting your anime. I'm not entirely sure when it's coming out, maybe next year, maybe the year after. You'll have to wait and see. Now, I know a handful of months ago Dr. Stone finished, but supposedly it isn't over yet. Now, this was a comment made by the author author, Inagaki, but it also could be referencing something else, a commemoration to a special chapter or commemoration chapter to an event that surrounds Dr. Stone. No one is entirely sure what this means. It was kind of just an offhanded comment. It could be a spin-off story, it could be some sort of loose continuation elsewhere. No one's really sure. I looked further into this just to see if there was more legitimacy to it or more of a backing behind it, but I couldn't find anything really substantial. But it's interesting nonetheless. Dr. Stone has a lot of fans for it. It's a very interesting story, and even if it's spun off or continued in some sort of way even further after its conclusion, could be very interesting. Who knows? Now, because Ayashimon got cancelled and seemingly a couple of other series are very close to it potentially, we have some new manga on the horizon. The first one being Aliens Area. This is described as a quote-unquote thrilling cosmic battle, action, and fantasy full of aliens. So this author has a lengthy line of one-shots underneath their belt. This may be their first full-fledged story within Weekly Shonen Jump. Focusing on aliens, however, a little bit questionable. It's currently not the most popular thing within the industry. The only series I can think of that is bringing such a refreshing and creative outlook within that direction is Dan, so maybe this manga is a response to that, trying to capitalize on the success that is Dan by offering it within Weekly Shonen Jump, which is pretty normal. It's something that they like to do, but regardless, I'm interested to see how it does it. The other one is called Ruri Dragon. What's interesting about this author is that they originally dropped a one-shot a couple of years back, I can't actually remember, called Count Over, and a lot of people really loved this one-shot because it was just beautifully stylistic, it was very interesting, it wasn't all too revolutionary, but it just felt like a solid piece of work. Unfortunately, it never got that traction behind it to be published as a full series, but this new one is described as, quote, high school girl grows horns and discovers her father is a dragon, end quote. Seems like a very massive departure away from the Count Over one-shot and into something more comedic, romancy, not to kind of overthrow it with the battle action side of Weekly Shonen Jump, but there easily could be way more here. So I'm also interested to see how this goes. For the My Hero fans, your spin-off story, My Hero Vigilante, has ended. 126 chapters in total, I believe. I've never personally read this, but I've heard really great things about it. It's pretty enjoyable. A spin-off story that too is rather popular, that tells a different side to the main one, which is always great to see. The very last thing that I want to talk about is the Pluto anime. Over the past, I want to say 10 hours, I've seen a lot of traction for this, but a handful of years back, Pluto by Naoki Urasawa was getting an anime. I had kind of like a demo reel, it was announced at an event, and there was a pretty decent reception towards it, but the way it was announced was a little bit odd. See, this anime has been conceptualized as a passion project by a very specific and very prominent individual, Masao Maruyama. Now, you may not know this individual, but you may know a lot of the companies that have produced potentially some of your favorite animes of all time. He is the co-owner of Madhouse. He created Mappa, and now he's left those two and has started his own production company called M2. Now, the reason he has done this is because he wants to have full creative freedom, full flexibility, and to work within his own limitations. He wants to work with people that have this similar mindset. The business corporate side that has fueled Madhouse and Mappa, which is very standard for the industry and the business-like structure that it is, very tiring, can be very toxic, can be very suffocating. So M2 is his new studio, has started on Pluto. Pretty big project straight off the bat, specifically because Maruyama has a great relationship with Naoki Urasawa, the author of Pluto, and specifically Monster, which is what Maruyama originally directed, I believe. Because of this creative freedom, this has ran into a bit of a hiccup. Pluto seemingly has been shelved, put on hold. I wouldn't say necessarily cancelled, even though that's the extreme side of it, but more so it's on the back burner currently. There's a couple of reasons that I could only find for this. One, a handful of small production material that's completely in-house is currently on sale. I don't know why. Japan's Amazon equivalent, I don't know what it's called, has intricate reference sheets and production material that is used to work on the anime production. Not entirely sure why it's here, but it is being sold and it seems rather real. The second reasoning was that M2 was struggling to find distributors and other corporate-like entities to help bring this project to life. I assume this is probably one of the more harder parts of being an independent studio that has some incredible history, some incredible connections, but not having the, I guess, representation that other corporations would like to see. Pluto is a very popular series, but it's not necessarily mainstream, and I would assume there's nothing saying for these corporations that this is a series that they want to put their money into. It's popular, it's successful, but it's not mainstream. It's not currently being sought after. So it's hard to dump your money into a production knowing that you potentially may not get a return. Seemingly, this is where the problem is. There's a lot of uncertainty for that. There's no real confirmation or direct connection to all of these things, but when you start to put these issues together, it paints a much more grueling image of what could be happening. All I'll say is that hold out. Maruyama is a veteran, a very well-respected individual within the industry, and even though he is a bit older, being 75, a lot of people love this guy, and he has created two of the most successful companies within the animation industry. So if there's anyone that could do it, it's him. Pluto's anime has been on the back burner for quite some time, but one can hope sometime within the future we'll see it come to light. With all of this, however, leave a like, subscribe, sub to my second channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.